Alrighty guys, and welcome back. So today is the day that I've kind of been regretting, and that is doing the sand and mud test on this here setup. So I know there's been a lot of these done on YouTube, especially here as of late, and one of the common things that a lot of the guys start with is they are starting out with a clean weapon, or relatively clean, lubricated, ready to go. The only differences between mine and theirs is this weapon has, I want to say right at 3600 rounds, somewhere in there, since it was last cleaned, and it just got lubricated here recently, but before that it had went roughly 2000 rounds since it was lubricated as well. Ran through that fine. The reason I went ahead and lubricated it is one of the issues that you're going to run into with a lot of weapons with lubrication is some of the stuff like sand sticking inside the chamber whenever you use it. So with the sand test portion of this, it will have lubrication inside the bolts that can kind of help get the sand stuck in there, which hindsight being 2020, not necessarily going to be a problem because I'm starting out with mud. So what I've got here is some extremely soupy slash goopy mud. This is out here in our cow pasture, and it constantly gets run through with vehicles. This little spot right here, there's a valley where there's a small ditch line that runs from one side of the pasture to the other over towards the ponds at, and allows overflow from the field to go into the pond. So to start out, we're going to do a mud test. So first I'll just face down, face up, dust cover open. Worst case scenario, we know that with the dust cover closed, it's going to do absolutely fine. Now, I want to go ahead and premise that the reason I'm doing this is I've had lots of people tell me that these weapons not being cleaned, not being maintained, that they're going to shit the bed on them. We know this is the case, and I just kind of wanted to do my rendition of this, and it's a lot of fun to kind of see these torture test videos go down on these particular weapons. I know it's something that I particularly enjoy, so I wanted to do my rendition of that. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get this knocked out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and double check all the screws and everything, make sure that everything's locked down nice and tight so I'm not getting water seepage around any kind of O-rings or any optics on this. Alright, as you can see, this is nice and goopy and disgusting. You can see kind of how my feet just sink into it. So it's not your average, everyday, run-of-the-mill mud. So this is going to be really gross. I'm going to regret having to clean this later. But after this test, this thing is getting a 100% cleaning and wipe down, and that would also be a part of the video. Let's go ahead and get into it. All right, completely submerged. Nice. Other side, not that it matters. Completely submerged. Go ahead and get it in there nice and filthy. There we go. All right, I have my ghetto ass tripod set up here because I forgot my normal filming tripod. All right, so there's that. I'm gonna go one more, do you one better as well. Go ahead and get some of that nice goopy mud right on the ejection port. Set that right there. All right, you see that? It's kind of gross. All right, let's see how this runs. I cannot see the target for this Zeotech. There we go. Go. And you can see one of the cool things about it is even with the mud covering the ejection port, one of the really neat things that these systems had going for them, and it's also the reason I don't particularly like running piston, is the gas rings or the gas ports that are on the side of these bolts. It actually launches a puff of gas out of the side of the system before the bolt actually starts to unlock, and you can actually probably see it in this video, and it starts to blow it out the side. But you can see there, it locked to the rear. That magazine is now good and filthy. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse this off in that nasty, dirty, soupy mud, and then go to the sand. All right, next up, so you can see still plenty of mud and gunk on it, but I did slosh it around through that dirty ass water real quick just to pull the excess, like the goopy buildup that was there. So again, ejection port open, 5 more rounds loaded in the magazine, and I should annotate that on the last run, the first 2 rounds that I fired out of there were steel case. It's lower powered ammunition, so generally with lower powered ammo, you're going to have a little bit more of an issue running the system when the system gets really dirty, because you don't have as much propellant and pressure to actually run the gun. Steel case generally is going to shoot a whole lot softer than your full power M193. So the first 2 rounds were just some steel case that I had, and then after that it was M193. the last 3. So here again, I've got, I believe, 4 or 5 rounds of M193 loaded in the magazine. Now the sand I've got here is your Florida sand, so it's a little bit mix of, I guess, topsoil and sand in it as well, but it does have sand, a little bit of clay in there. You can see there's a piece of clay, and this stuff is plenty fine. I did sift through it a little bit, get some of the stuff out of it, but it does still have a bit of grass clippings and whatnot in it. But gonna go ahead, just cover this entire system with all that sand. Go ahead and get you back on the tripod real fast. We are currently in the same location that we were before. All right, pick straight up. As you guys can see, there's some ants in there too. Just so you guys can see that. Just gonna give it a quick shake. Throw some in on the system. Knock the target off of this table. But there again, even with sand, the system still works just fine. Big common misconception is the actual reliability of this platform, and I believe it's kind of a horse that's been beat to death at this point, that this system is actually one of the, if not the most reliable platforms on the planet. You add any kind of dust, debris, mud, even if you don't completely douse it in water whenever you're in a freezing environment, but just letting it sit and be out in the elements with you, even in a freezing environment, this system tends to do pretty well. But as you can see, mud, dirt, this thing did absolutely fine. And that Florida sand is not quite as fine as some of the stuff that I've seen out there, but it still tends to do pretty well. So I'm going to take this back to my desktop and break it down, clean it, kind of give you guys an idea of what the internals of this looks like. Now, that's not only been super muddy, covered in sand, and also caked and covered in carbon throughout the entire system. Let you guys know how the parts wore, what everything looks like, and just let y'all know what y'all think. Alrighty guys, and for the final part of this, so I'm going to go ahead and do a whole breakdown of this entire weapon system. Now, I do want to kind of go over the process for repair and maintenance for your gun. Depending on the AO that you're in is how you're going to want to lubricate, clean, maintain your particular weapon. Now, the whole point of this test was to kind of let you guys know that you can go for a very long period of time, even suppressed, with a short barrel like this and not have to clean your weapon, and then still be able to rely on it in the event that it gets incredibly dirty. Now, you can say that, oh, well, you only fired a couple of rounds to the system. And yeah, while that may be true, usually if the system's going to gum up and jam, it'll do it within the first couple. I didn't put it on film afterwards, but I did fire 2 magazines through this. I ran a couple of drills real quick over at the flat range, and again, it ran flawlessly. Now, I did have to, I couldn't rely on this little ping pong paddle here to send the bolt home after the first mag. When that thing, when the last round fired, the bolt just kind of followed its way all the way home and not have back on the last round there. But I was able to remedy it by just racking the charging handle, and that is one of the cool points about these rifles, is the amount of redundancies that they actually have on them. Now, as far as how you're going to maintain and lubricate your weapon, so if you are in a particularly hot and dusty environment, so like a desert out in the Midwest, California, something like that, or in our case, when we were in the Middle East, you do not want to add copious amounts of lubrication to these. That's also why I did the 2,000 round without lubrication on this platform, just kind of let you guys know that it can run a really long time without any kind of lubricants and do so reliably. Now, if you're in a cold environment, you're going to kind of want to treat it the same way. You can do just a little tiny bit of light oil. Usually what I'll do is I'll break the entire system down, take the bulk carrier, group all its parts, and I'll just get a little bit of the oil on my fingers and just kind of wipe it loosely on the bolt to get very light coat on there. Run the system, and then you're not going to have the issue of the lubricant gumming up and freezing. If you try and treat this like over here on the eastern United States, the southeastern United States, where it doesn't really get super cold, doesn't really ever, if ever, get below freezing, and you just completely fill it full of lubrication, the system is going to freeze up and it is going to gum up. It is an oil-based thing, not a rifle-based thing. It's Lucas oil, which does incredibly good in different environments. If you put too much in the system, it's going to gum up. Same thing as if you're in a desert environment, the lubrication is going to attract sand particles, and that fine moon dust is going to get in and amongst the systems on this, and it's going to gum up the system. So just a really light layer of lubrication on the bolt carrier group itself is all you need. I don't put any in the buffer tube, I don't put any in the trigger group, I don't put any anywhere else in the system, just inside the bolt itself. And then it'll reliably get you easily through a couple of thousand rounds if you're getting a good quality gun and you're running good quality ammunition. Now, if you start running steel case ammunition, you can run into the problem, especially on the lighter side. Guns that are gas on the lighter side of it not running lively, which is why I don't like those super tiny gas ports. The guys who claim that those are the best thing since sliced bread, because it's really loud on the system and the system's really loud on recoil. Once the system gets really gummed up and you have a small port like that, you're gonna start running into problems. Unless you're running full power ammunition. Now, if you're just gonna be running full power ammunition 100% of the time, you might not have an issue. But in a civilian kind of situation or a bug out kind of situation where you don't have the luxury of picking what kind of ammunition you're shooting in your system, and all you have is steel case, if your system's not able to reliably run it, especially when it comes up, you're going to start having malfunctions, even in really expensive rifles. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and break this entire gun down, kind of show you guys what the internals of this system looks like now, and I will clean it, get back to you guys after I clean it. I'll do some before and some after pictures as well of the entire system for you guys. Alrighty, with the power of editing, and 1 hour and 20 minutes later, very dirty hands, got it all cleaned up. Now, I did not clean the exterior of the gun. There's still a little bit of mud in a couple of places, so I have to take the handguard off and do all that. And honestly, as I shoot it, that stuff will kind of remedy itself, and mud being on the outside of the system isn't really going to do a whole lot. As you can see, there's a little tiny bit here and there that doesn't really bother me. Now, a couple of the things that I would like to point out about this gun that I like, or how I've got it set up, is one, this buffer system I've gotten here, and something that I noticed that was pretty cool that I didn't know before, and that is down here, and I would assume it comes from the factory, but there are a couple of holes drilled down here set up as drain holes. Now, this is an LWRC buffer tube, so not 100% sure if that's a feature that those guys come with. So, as you see, nice smooth system. The action has been completely dug out or cleaned out. There was an absolute fuck ton of carbon inside of this gun, which is as to be expected, and again, the system was able to run reliably. So I guess kind of in closing, my whole premise for this video is this is an incredibly reliable system. They're incredibly robust the way it's designed. Closing, guys, don't worry about having the white glove cleaning your gear all the time. Systems do not necessarily need to be cleaned 24/7. They will run incredibly well. They will run for a very long time, even suppressed. But if you guys do have any questions, drop them down in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, happy shooting.